Welcome to the Public Speaking Podcast. My name's Matt, and I'm going to be talking about the art of public speaking.
And I'm Emma, and I'm going to be talking about the business of public speaking.
And today we've got Laurence with us, who's going to be talking about the events in public speaking. Good to have you with us, Laurence. We've known each other for quite a while.
Good to be here, yes,
and today will be all the good stories, I promise.
Exactly.
Tell us a little bit about what you do. Who are you? What do you do?
I'm Laurence. I'm the co-founder of the Happy Startup School. We are a community, thriving community of entrepreneurs, but also an alternative business school. So we help people start businesses, pivot their business, and in some cases, move on to a new pasture, a new chapter. And sometimes that means closing a business.
I was reflecting on what it is you guys do this morning in prep for this. And I was trying to think, what's the best way to describe it? I think alternative business school is it really. And what I love about it is the way I was describing it was the idea of like helping people find what really matters to them in their life and connect with their needs and, you know, some people might say purpose, and then figure out how to kind of realign their business and kind of express that out in it.
Yeah.
Great. And you do a lot of events, isn't there? There's loads of events.
Yeah. So we started out, I would say, solely as an events business. We sort of do a lot more things these days, an online program. We do podcast too. We do a lot of other things, but yeah, built our reputation on events, and events as in meetups at the beginning. We started to do workshops. So we saw ourselves as, at the beginning, we were going to be a training company, because myself and Carlos, who started the Happy Startup School, we used to run a web design business, and we'd learned a lot on that journey working with entrepreneurs and small businesses. So I think at the beginning we thought it was going to be just us teaching, and then over doing a few small events, this community started to build. And this sort of head of steam started to happen, really, which then made us realize, oh, maybe there's more to this. And then that ended up with us doing much bigger, bolder things than we would have thought at the start.
The way you guys work is a bit of a model for how you bring people through the school, isn't it? Because your background was in running a digital agency before kind of realizing you wanted to do something different, right?
Yeah, exactly. And to your point about, you know, how you describe what we do, I would say the number one thing that we find is most people who find us are in some sort of transition, and transition could be starting something new. That was mine and Carlos's story, really. Like, and also mine, I think, because we've been friends for years, like 40 odd years. I'm showing my age now. But yeah, we ended up falling into the same industry. He was a scientist turned programmer. I was a kind of failed economist turned web designer. And we both got a bit disillusioned with working with big agencies in London, and then set up together in Brighton. That was always my dream, to live by the sea and to have a little kind of boutique design studio. And we did that. And so that was something I was really proud of. And then didn't really have a vision for the next stage. Yeah. Didn't really know what was next, and just thought, oh, this is great, until then suddenly you're like managing a team. Then you're seeing other people running bigger companies, thinking, oh, maybe we should do that and grow that. And I was like, I don't really want to do that. It doesn't look that fun.
Yeah.
And actually on that quest, I guess, to understand what do I want? What do we want? I started to learn a lot more about happiness and positive psychology and purpose, like you said. But this was like 15 years ago, and there wasn't much about that then. So it was kind of a sort of fledgling field, so to speak. So yeah, in some ways we were learning and sharing as we went, which was part of that journey.
And back to the idea of community, how important is it in those sort of pivotal moments and transitions you were talking about, that community come together and you sort of provide the space for that, whether it's tribes of people or...
Well, I'm sure if anyone, I mean, you guys know this, if you run your own business, it can be quite a lonely place.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think the mistake we made with our first company, I feel like, was we felt like we had to know it all. Like, and I think part of that was people would come to us for answers. Like, you know, you guys know about web design, you guys know about business, you guys know about how to get us online. So actually showing any sort of weakness and saying, I need other people to help me build this thing, felt like a bit of a weird admission, especially like 15, 20 years ago when the world was a bit different. I think, you know, we even felt weird being in Brighton, not being in London as an agency. You know, you were trying to, I remember having like a kind of post office
London,
post office box in London and a meeting room, and trying to pretend it's your own.
Yeah. You rent alongside 20 other businesses. Yeah.
Exactly. Long story short, we found when we started the Happy Startup School, suddenly this well of support opened up, partly because we admitted that we wanted to get help, you know, and we wanted other people to share this journey with. And that just changed everything, because suddenly you're like, oh, there's all these people to collaborate with, and it's a lot more fun as well. It was a lot more fun to sort of admit that we didn't want to be siloed away in our own little world.
Empowering, learning from other people and the ways they have and should and shouldn't do things too, and learn experience. Matt, do you have similar, when people come to you, there's some need and want to connect themselves to a community?
Yeah, I think it's funny enough, like I've recently set up a community. It's only WhatsApp based at the moment, but within a month or two, we had, I think, 60 people who were in it, which just showed people are keen to have a space on shared journeys. And I've definitely noticed a kind of different energy, not better, not worse, but a different energy from, say, working with people in my one-to-one practice, which is, okay, where are you in your role, and let's kind of integrate stuff here, versus when people come to our intensives, or the kind of 1-day events or 3-day events, they connect. And I think we were having this conversation with Beth in a different episode, was how everyone arrives completely different people, we've all got our labels and then all of a sudden that kind of drops. And we realize that fundamentally we've all got a really shared common ground and similar kind of like hang-ups, fears, worries, hesitations,
There's a power in that shared experience.
Yeah,
and also
definitely.
feeling part of other people are on the learning journey too, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's what I love about, what you guys are doing and have been doing for ages is you bring people together who, and we've talked about this with Charlotte actually, like who are on a transition. And there's the various kind of programs that you run, but then there's your events that I'm really curious in as well for this conversation, and particularly summer camp.
Yep.
Which is, I guess, kind of like the jewel in the crown, really, for the Happy Startup School, isn't it?
Yeah.
And you have all sorts of speakers and workshops. Of course, you create that, you run it, you host it to a certain extent as well. Tell us a little bit about what makes it work.
So Summer Camp, I would describe it as our flagship event. Someone described it recently, which I quite like, as the heartbeat of our community. It's like an annual sort of pulse, where all the good stuff happens. And in some ways, everything we've done since would never have happened without it. It's been like the nest almost for all the ideas that have come out of the community. I actually think it's like, I was talking to someone this about yesterday. A lot of people think they want to start a community. And as you found, maybe that WhatsApp group, it can be quite hard to sort of manage and nurture a community. So I always say, don't start one if you don't need one. And I actually think it works because I want that event to exist. I need it. Yeah. I need that every year. I need that pulse of connection, and I get so much joy from it. Carlos, my co-founder, gets it. All the team that we built. So like that kind of intrinsic need for connection, I think, is so important. And I say that because it can be easy to look at it on paper and think doesn't make any sense. Like either whether it's financially or just energetically. Like if you're an accountant, you'd look at it and think it was this crazy business move. Yeah. Because it's really hard to make money on events like that, especially when you want to put everything into it. But we realized like that doesn't have to be the thing that makes the money. It's the brand builder, the community builder, the legacy, really. Like the impact of Summer Camp is way bigger than me or Carlos or any of our team or speakers. It's like a kind of collective effervescence of people coming together. So for me, the thing that makes it work is, just that shared intention, I think, of, we all need this in-person gathering and we can't quite put our finger on what it is, but that energy to sort of inspire each other through stories, which I'm sure we'll talk about, through a shared reality as well. Because like you said, you can turn up as a stranger to an event like that and feel like, oh my God, everyone's going to know each other. And we're always very conscious of that. But actually, knowing that you're all at this start point together, no one else will have, that weekend is going to be unique because of all the people that come. So I think that's part of it for us.
So you have speakers at those events as well. And what is your process in how do you choose or decide who comes to speak at your event?
Especially
given it's question. This is like Colonel Sanders' secret recipe, isn't it?
But you've mentioned the word happy and joy, and obviously there's a certain atmosphere you're trying to curate.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, we have a sort of, I'd say, a set of values at the Happy Startup School. So our core values at the Happy Startup School are learning, play, and friendship. So those have been there since day one. They're part of almost me and Carlos's DNA, I would say. That's almost like a undercurrent of like what we seek in relationships in work and life. It's not too serious. There's an element of play. There's an element of, we're learning from them. Like we always are attracted to people that we can think, I can learn something from them. And the friendship part, like again, connection being important things. So we don't want someone who's coming into, which I think is a danger of like, I want to come to inspire your audience. I don't need this, but I'm going to come and be the one who knows it all. I'm the one who's been there and done it and been on my business journey, and I'm going to show you my 7 steps to success. Like that's not what we're looking for, because for us, that's just not relatable for most people, I think.
Yeah.
And they're either starting out or on a journey. If someone's standing up there not showing any vulnerability and they're just looking the smartest person in the room, that just kind of kills the mood, really, because everyone else feels like, oh God, they've got it worked out and I'm still here. And I thought that Yeah, it's such a big gap between someone sat in the audience and someone on stage showing their journey. So
That's not going to land with the people that are there. So that, you
No.
know, there's also,
and it's not realistic as well, because anyone I talk to who's ever done anything successful, they've always got a story behind the scenes. You know, they've always got, oh, you think it looks, yeah, but don't believe everything you see on Instagram.
It's like the swan and the legs underneath, isn't it? You know, the old age-old metaphor there, isn't it?
A bit like when we were running agencies, we'd see all these, you know, bigger agencies than us, more successful, and then you talk to the founders over dinner and you get a very different story. So
yeah,
those are the stories that we seek, those kind of more vulnerable, more authentic, more real stories, actually.
I love that. And we talk about leveling the stage quite a lot and making room for the underdog and for voices that aren't necessarily shouting the loudest, but have something really genuine to say. And I think a lot of people feel like they have something to say, but it doesn't necessarily land. And a lot of those wisdoms are in the individuals and the stories and that, you know, that learned experience that we've gone back to. In your work, Matt, how often do people come to you and aren't aware of those stories? Perhaps they're very good at what they do as a professional, but is it something like the Happy Startup summer camp or courses or working with a coach can help you kind of bring out some of that? Maybe you're not even aware of it.
Yeah. I think I see this loads, and I'm sure you've seen it loads as well, is that a lot of people come thinking that the story people want to hear is the story that's not about them. You know, it's about the stats or the facts.
Why would anyone care about my story?
How do you 10x
or the
my
trends
business?
or whatever, you know. And it is funny, like it's only recently I've been working with you know, a founder of a fintech firm. I think we were talking about this recently. And, you know, the shift we've gone on from, you know, oh, here's a bunch of stats around this industry and here's what we're doing, to, you know, I remember seeing, it was great, you know, seeing him like change a piece completely where he kind of came on stage with a Game Boy in his hand and started about, he's had this since he's 16, you know, and how these parallels that have been seen in the industry are similar to the parallels that he's seen as a lifelong gamer in how technology has changed. And it just, instantly I could say, this is so more you and so more engaging.
Relatable, yeah.
I guess that's what I was curious about having you here as well. And I guess there's a lot of people who are going to be watching and listening to this who are thinking about, okay, right, when I'm interested in pitching for talks, whether it's a summer camp or if it's Brighton SEO, you know, the big event we have down or whatever, a kind of immediate space they often go to because of what they've seen and what they've been told is that, oh, it all has to be this kind of transactional thing, this polished thing. From your point of view, as someone who's brought on literally hundreds of speakers that have made people, I've seen it, laugh, cry, the whole lot, you know, it's like, as an organizer who wants a speaker that really connects, what do you look for?
I suppose because we do summer camp once a year, we have the luxury of time in some ways. So what we find is, because we do other programs, we have visibility on lots of other people and stories. I always think of summer camp as like a collection of all the people we've met over the last 12 months. There's a few who get in who aren't part of the community already or haven't come into our world, you know, who gets suggested to us or we find. But often it's actually people who've shown some willing in terms of whether it's, I don't know, reaching out, you know, without that sort of, I think of it like dating or something. Not I've dated for a long time, but
Who makes the first move?
Yeah, well, no, it's that thing of like, it's a relationship you're building.
Yeah.
And as an event organizer, I get sent so many messages from people on LinkedIn or emails, or people apply to participate, and then actually what they want to do is speak and build a relationship with you. But they're pitching you straight off. You know, they're literally coming in with a pitch. And what you actually want is for them to spend time to get to know the community, to get to know you. You know, they have no idea what summer camp's like until they get there. So I think what we look for is actually people who, you know, again, show that willing for, I want this, I've done my research for number one, but also they're not just doing this to hundreds of different event organizers.
Yeah.
But,
yeah.
you know, we've mentioned
They
this
might get
before.
something from it themselves as well. You know, it's not just transactional.
No, but also they've been intentional about, like, you know, these are hubs and communities that I want to be part of, or that I believe my message is important to share within. But it's not this sort of cold pitching, you know, because that, for me personally, that just does not work, because there's so many people we've got no shortage of people we can invite to speak at summer camp. The thing that we always look for is something a bit different, a bit unique, something very real, something relevant to where we're at in the world as well. You know, at the moment, you know, this year's theme for summer camp is community wisdom, because we're looking at the advent of AI, we're looking at people being on screens a lot more, and actually people losing their ability to sort of trust their own intuition and actually to trust each other. So what we want to do is celebrate events like summer camp, communities like ours, where people, you know, all get a say and all get to help each other. rather than, again, the guru being the wise one. This kind of collective shared body of wisdom that comes together. And that's, so summer camp can, again, be something that we can celebrate that. And the stories we want to share, where there's a lady who's going to speak who's in her 20s, it doesn't mean that she's not wiser than me.
Yeah.
Wisdom isn't just about age, it's about that sort of priority, really know what matters, and having that sort of perspective that a lot of us struggle with in day-to-day life. So that's why it depends on year to year, it depends on who comes into our world. But yeah, at the heart of it, I would say, is stories that move me, really, or move us. And it's that taste, knowing, trusting your own gut judgment about, I think this will work because of something in that person that I see. And sometimes it's hard to put your finger on what that is.
Yeah, sometimes it's energetic as well as literal, isn't it?
Yeah.
You feel it. And I guess that's where like emotion comes into it, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like, is there any emotion? I don't think I've ever seen a presentation at summer camp or any of these events which haven't had some sort of emotional angle in it.
And again, that's a far cry from this idea of this perfectly polished, well-honed, corporate dry speech with the key. Actually, that's not always going to be impactful.
And we actually say that to them. I don't want to have the talk that you've given 20 times. Yeah. And I think, the beauty of summer camp is people can come to it even if they come for the first time to speak, and they get a sense, particularly if they're not speaking on the first day.
Yeah.
You've probably found this, Matt. It's a 3-day event. If you're speaking on the second or third day, it's your first summer camp, they'll have got to meet lots of people. They've got a sense of the vibe and the culture, and they'll go, okay, this is the place I can give the talk I really want to give. I feel safe to do this.
Yeah.
And I think that safety piece is so important when it's sharing your story more vulnerably.
Yeah.
They're not going to go into a business event and do that unless they feel comfortable with the people they're around. So yeah, feeling that the audience have got their back rather than going to sit there arms folded.
I think it's really interesting you say that you've created that kind of safe space. And I think that, a lot of time in social media or in business, you put things out that you're working towards an algorithm, or you think that something's going to be put out there and it's going to be picked up in a certain capacity, or you're pitching to a certain event or stage that you want to be on. And actually what you're saying gets a little diluted in that because you're trying to appeal in a particular little box. And what's refreshing about the summer camp is that it's a real wide range of people from different angles. And again, Matt, have you worked with anybody going into such an event, or do you like it to be less polished? How does that work in terms of a speaker preparing for an event like that?
Yeah, so I support Laurence's speakers for summer camp. Those that need support, I work with them. What's it like working? I love working with summer camp speakers because a lot of the speakers are either aiming to be already close to where I'm trying to bring the vast majority of my other clients, into a real place of alignment. In psychotherapy terms, like the idea of it being in congruence, the idea that what you say and do is in line with your intentions and thoughts. And very often that is not there. And it's like, okay, come on, what do you really want to say? How do you really feel about that? What does that really mean? And when most summer camp speakers are either on a journey to get there, if they're part of the community, or the speakers are, the way I see it, the inspiration to help other people kind of continue on that journey. Here's an honest thing, is that sometimes in that space, when people are really, as we heard the same from Charlotte earlier, when they're really in that kind of open space, the tap's turned on. It's not a case of you need to turn it on.
Yeah.
So then it's a case of it is. It's like, right, okay, how do we now bring all this excitement, this exuberance, this honesty, and kind of package it into something that's going to work for 500 people or whatever it is?
Yeah.
That's like maybe the challenge, or for anyone who's listening who's like, they're at that, it's like, right, how do I shape it now? It's about trimming.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I think we have talked about, maybe the nervousness of putting yourself out there, but then also it works in the other way of, I've got all this stuff I've turned on the tap and I've got lots to say, but it's not cohesive.
Yeah, it's definitely that editing, isn't it? And simplifying the message and the story. And we've had chats because often we'll be the first person to speak to them and to sort of help them shape the story a bit, and then Matt will help take it on. But sometimes it's just a bit like too much, in terms of like, I've got this, I've got that, I've got this. So trying to create in 20, 25 minutes, which isn't a lot, a story that people will remember ultimately, or feel, not just like go, okay, that was really smart, but I felt their story, I felt them, that energy. Yeah,
because there's the story, which when first uncovered is just a story. And then there's putting a story on a stage in front of a couple of hundred people. And then it does need to remain that story, but it needs to be delivered in a certain way that works for that room. I love working with summer camp speakers, but it's more of that space, right? You've got all this fizz and excitement. For everyone who's listening, so we've got a lot of people who, are going to be wanting to be that kind of speaker, and there's those who are more in the corporate space, perhaps, and we adjust what we do. But what are the kind of tips that you would say for people who are looking to get more speaking gigs that are perhaps more human? What tips would you have for speakers like that?
The people I've seen sort of build a profile and get in front of us, or putting yourself in a position where people like us can spot them, they are just honing their craft somehow, whether they're on a podcast, whether they're doing small local business events or community events, but like they're just trying to be consistent and trying to hone their craft a bit. I think that element of visibility is something we help people with in our program as well. It's something, we all struggle with it. I think, we're happy to promote whether it's our clients or brands, but when it's us and our story, it can be really vulnerable. Again, because of that safety thing of like, you put yourself online, stand in a room, you don't know who's going to be there and who's going to kind of potentially be the troll. But I think that is a muscle almost that you can build. So a lot of the people we've either invited to speak at summer camp or collaborated with have again shown that willing to just put themselves out there a bit, and sometimes that we don't wait until they're perfect before we get them to speak. We will get them up when they're on that journey, and that is a leap of faith for us. But actually, those are the most sort of, I guess, connecting speakers, because people want them to succeed. They want them to. I think if a
You're rooting for them.
Incredible learning opportunity.
Yeah, there's a friend of ours in the community who stood up and grabbed the mic a couple of years ago at your Church of Fail, which Matt runs on the Sunday morning, which is great. But it's just this energy shift where suddenly everyone's like, oh, like you really want them to do well, and he just said, "I'm nervous."
Feel it, don't you? Yeah.
But just that kind of sort of pops the balloon a bit, and the pressure dilutes a bit. So yeah, again, it's not about this linear journey from I'm no one till now I'm on stage at an event like Summer Camp. It's actually, sometimes that working out loud, being more visible is something we celebrate too, and yeah, I like those stories rather than, this guy's a dead cert, he's done 100 talks, he'll be great, and you can just switch off then. But actually,
the ones that have got a bit more nuance or edge, or maybe even risk a little bit, because that's human.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that they're learning as they go, and it's a real story. It's not a polished one too much. So it's that balance, I guess, of being good enough to hold an audience, but also not being so polished that you're not relatable.
I love that. So then for anyone listening who might be looking for a community or looking where to find the Happy Startup Company, can you point them in the right direction?
Yeah, well, our website's the easiest place to go to, thehappystartupschool.com. There's loads of stuff on there, our podcasts, hundreds of articles. We've got some free guides as well if people want to download, if they're thinking of starting something new or struggling with getting their idea off the ground. And yeah, our events are on there too, and our Happy MBA program, which is our sort of flagship online program that we run as well. So yeah, lots of ways for people to get in touch.
Thank you for joining us. Every ever is valid. Thanks for being with us, and thanks for listening, everybody, and we'll see you on the next episode.